Yes, it's Yahoo Sportsbook Live here for Week 11. We are in the middle of some really surprising results, but before we get to all that, Ariel Epstein, welcome to your first. I don't like to say welcome to people when they're watching a show. Ariel, this is one of my many annoying beliefs, bits, and habits. Is that I don't like to say like welcome to this show because it's like, what are we really welcoming people to? They're probably just still sitting at their house. Anyways, though, I am welcoming you to the show because I am very happy that you are here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, especially to be able to talk with somebody about props and daily fantasy and, of course, the sides and totals. I know what our expertise is, and it's going to be a great show.
Well, expertise might be a generous word for me, but I am along for the ride, and it is going to be a fun discussion. But let's jump right in. Let's waste no more time of those people out there who definitely do not want to hear about what I think about what is right when it comes to welcoming people to shows. Give me a break. What am I doing here? All right, let's talk Colts at Bills. This was a -7 spot for the Bills coming into here, and the current line is Indianapolis -9.5, Ariel, because they're beating the brakes off the Bills here, 24-7. There's been some interesting moments in here. Isaiah McKenzie, it's rainy, it's messy up there. He just basically trips and fumbles the ball. I didn't even, it's crazy, right? And then the Colts get the ball back in scoring position right there. We've got Jonathan Taylor with 2 touchdowns in this one. Jonathan Taylor, what an unbelievable player. Apparently the Colts, per Hard Knocks, the in-season Hard Knocks, they think he is a top 5 offensive weapon across the entire league. And sometimes, Ariel, watching this guy, I'm inclined to believe them with that. He is that explosive.
He is, and those are the things that I look for when you know that it's going to be rainy or snowy. Who's going to have the better rushing offense? In this situation, it's the Indianapolis Colts. Jonathan Taylor, earlier in the game, passed the Titans running back Derrick Henry for the most rushing yards in the league this year. He's been unbelievable, having a great season. When you look to this game, it was too many points for a Colts defense that's good up front. They've been good at stopping the run game. Buffalo doesn't have a run game. Pretty much what they have to rely on is Josh Allen, and they have to rely on Stephon Diggs to come up with the big catch like he did in the end zone for their first touchdown. I took the Colts in the points today. It just was too many points for a team like the Colts that's competitive in the AFC South.
Yeah, the Colts are competitive. By the way, I love that you said, Jonathan Taylor passes Derrick Henry, who hasn't played for 3 games. Jonathan Taylor just now finally passes Derrick Henry. Yeah, unbelievable. Derrick Henry, what a monster as well. These two guys are just so explosive. Love to see it. I agree with you. The Bills' lack of a rushing attack, in terms of the modern NFL, we all want these teams to be pass heavy. We want these teams to be aggressive, throwing the ball downfield, all that stuff. That's great. But at some point, it would be nice to hand off to somebody more reliable than Devin Singletary or Zach Moss. Even have Matt Breida mixing in now. Yeah, right. Or Josh Allen. Still, same thing here.
Himself every game being the rushing leader.
I know, it's unbelievable. And now, this backfield, total wasteland for fantasy, too. Now that they're, mixing in Matt Breida, who has a carry in this one. We know he scored a touchdown early. If they're going to split this already extremely small pie 3 ways, that is a tough scene. But, I like this a lot, for the Colts. I think they are going to be kind of competitive, both in the AFC South and, kind of just in that wild card mix as well. As long as they can keep the Carson Wentz mistakes at bay, and usually, unfortunately for Wentz, those have come in, really crucial big moments so far this year. As long as they can keep those mistakes at bay, I do think the Colts are an overall pretty solid team.
I actually decided today when Lamar Jackson was announced out for the Ravens to go pick up Carson Wentz in my fantasy league. So let's just hope that those mistakes are limited. I would say that 9.5 right now on the live line for the Buffalo Bills getting those points seems like a good number. I'm not going to count out a team that I bet on to win the Super Bowl this year. Buffalo could come back in this one, even as a dog. I mean, you're not even saying that they're favored anymore. They're plus 9.5. Too many points. You're basically almost getting double digits. Buffalo has a shot still to come back in this game and at least keep it within 10.
Completely agree with you. I like that 9.5 number for the Bills as well. Let's stick in the AFC South and let's stick with the theme of underdogs here. The Texans. Who saw the Texans being 12-0 over the Tennessee Titans? Ariel, the Titans came into this game minus 8.5. They're the weirdest team in the NFL, right? Because like they've lost Derrick Henry, as we just mentioned. They're still kind of trying to find an identity on offense. A.J. Brown, I think he's one of the best receivers in football, but like he leaves every game with an injury at some point. He did come back with his hand injury. Don't freak out about that. But 12-0, the Texans over the Titans. The Titans get beat by bad teams, and they lose to what's going on here? They beat good teams. What's the deal with the Titans?
You could always look at how some of these lines may move throughout the week. You get a good gist for what the odds makers are thinking. I do this pick'em pool where I pick 7 teams against the spread every week. And now I didn't have the guts to actually bet on Houston at plus 10.5. However, I did pick them in the pick'em pool. That was because I saw that over 60% of the action was coming in on Tennessee, and the line moved a full point against Tennessee over the last 24 hours. It moved them from minus 10.5 to minus 9.5. That sends sirens off. The public was talking on Twitter. I love going through Twitter. They're saying, how on earth are the Houston Texans going to cover or even win this game against Tennessee? The Titans do exactly what you were saying Houston does. Tennessee goes into these bad games. They don't care, I guess, or like I always say with the Chiefs, why throw your best playbook at one of the worst teams in the AFC? And then they're caught sleeping. And Tennessee has a lot to figure out without their star player, Derrick Henry. How do you get your offense going when you lose your star? That's something Tennessee is probably trying to sort out right now behind the scenes, and they probably didn't want to throw any of their fancy tricks at such a bad team like Houston, but Tyrod Taylor's under center for the Texans. I had no issue with, in this pick'em contest, being able to take Houston at plus 10.5. Again, still just was a tough one for me to really wrap my head around, but the line movement told you what you needed to know.
I love that point just about the Titans and Derrick Henry too, because he is legitimately like the entire identity of that offense. You know, they're throwing like 70-year-old Adrian Peterson and Donta Foreman out there. Don't even have Jerry.
He had a big run, AP, today.
Listen, I'm not trying to be totally disrespectful. I'm just trying to be moderately disrespectful when I'm talking about Adrian Peterson as like you're playing here in the middle of the season. You know, Marcus Johnson was the guy who stepped up for the Titans. Go for it.
Who would win a race? Would it be you or AP?
Me? Oh, listen. Adrian Peterson could be 50 years old and he would still whoop me in a race. Give me a break. I got a bad knee though. So let's be clear about that.
Okay.
It's a bad knee situation. Yeah. It's tough for me. A years long injury. But that's a story for another day. Definitely not appropriate for this show. But also too, Marcus Johnson, the guy for the Tennessee Titans who stepped up 100 yards last week, he got ruled out in this game. Titans can't catch a break injury-wise on offense, but they also can't catch a break on the field. Tyrod Taylor, the pride of Hampton, Virginia, by the way, Ariel, he is a solid starting quarterback. I know he had a bad game before the bye, but Tyrod's a pretty good starting quarterback. And, you know, distributing the ball to Brandon Cooks and stuff like that, this is going to be a decent game. I know you had a prop on this with Brandon Cooks. How are we looking on that one?
It's okay. He's only at 18 receiving yards. We've got to get over that 69.5 mark. It's a long ways to go. It looks like Conley has been his favorite receiver today. However, with Cooks, what we know, he could go off for a 50-yard catch at any given time. He is still Tyrod Taylor's favorite receiver. You mentioned the tough start that Tyrod had against Miami a couple of weeks ago. That was his first game back from injury. Now he's under center for a first half. He's got the lead. Let's see with some confidence and some comfort how much better this relationship between Cooks and Taylor could be in the second half.
I had a prop on the Nico Collins over on 27.5 receiving yards. He has just 9 yards so far today. He was this close to a touchdown early in this game. Doesn't make it. David Culley even challenged the play, was obviously going to lose that one. He was, if he just gotten that foot down before the elbow, would be in a good spot with Nico Collins. But keep an eye on that guy. I think he can play. He's a third-round rookie this year. Should be getting more playing time as the year goes on. I love it. You're on Brandon Cooks. I'm on Nico Collins, and Chris Conley is leading the team with like 30-plus receiving yards. Tough scene for both of us. Let's move on here to the Green Bay Packers Minnesota Vikings game. This one's interesting. Obviously, Packers came in just favored by only -1.5, and then the Vikings right now currently leading this game 16-10. The current line is Minnesota -3.5. This game is interesting. Obviously, you know Aaron Jones. We know that. A.J. Dillon filling in as the starting running back for the Green Bay Packers has 7 carries for 29 yards and another 4 catches for 22 yards. I had the over on his total yards this game. We still got quite a ways to go to get there, that's for sure.
For sure, and this is another one of those games where if you check the line movement and you saw where the public was going, it was my fishy line of the day. I always love to point out those reverse line movement type games. The sharp play was Minnesota. Early on this week, back on Monday or Tuesday, I bet the Vikings at +2.5. Just love the spot at home. The Vikings beat Green Bay last year when they were without their running back, Aaron Jones. Jones out for the next couple of weeks. Minnesota at home with Kirk Cousins. He's better at home in his career than he has been on the road in his career. This line went from Green Bay -2.5 to Green Bay -1. Not even a point. It was a 1.5 the Minnesota Vikings got. Even though they were still at +1 when this game started, I loved the Vikings in this spot considering almost 80% of the public was backing Green Bay, and the line still moved a 1.5 in Minnesota's favor.
Yeah, very interesting. Aaron Rodgers obviously banged up coming into this game. He is back on the sideline and warming up despite getting some hits here. It's interesting. This whole Green Bay offense is still kind of like trying to find itself post Aaron Rodgers, you know, COVID missing that game, everything. And I look at this Vikings team. By the way, Kirk Cousins got pretty lucky there with a questionable roughing the passer call that negated an interception.
Isn't it always questionable?
Yes, that is like the theme of the year. Hey, NFL refs, we're not watching these games to watch you. It's enough with like the refs, okay? This is a bad year for officials. They're talking way too much. I mean, like these guys think they're the main character of the show, Ariel. It does. I try not to be like the complain about the ref guy, but this year it's been pretty tough on that philosophy, that's for sure.
It has, but there is one thing that's been consistent more so than even the refs being bad. And that's the Vikings wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, who continues to just catch deep balls and tough ones. He is incredible, and he's so much fun to bet for longest reception props.
3 catches for 104 yards, all in the first quarter, by the way. 56 yards was his long catch. That was all on 3 targets. Like, I'd love to see I think Justin Jefferson, I hate to do another thing I hate to do is like the whole like we don't talk about this enough because it's like we're literally the ones talking, Ariel. Like if people should talk about it should be us, right? But I feel like we should talk more about Justin Jefferson being like a top 3 receiver in the NFL right now, only in his 2nd season. Like he is legitimately that good. Record-breaking rookie season. You mentioned he's explosive down the field. He's been, I think, even better in like short route situations this year. Contested catches after the catch. Like this guy legitimately does everything. I feel like we should start talking more about Justin Jefferson being one of the 3 best receivers in football right now.
He's the best at yards after catch. He is so good. He just doesn't score as much. Adam Thielen's more of the touchdown guy for Minnesota. Jefferson is the one that gets you down there to the red zone. He was a top 10 wide receiver last year as a rookie. He led all the rookie wide receivers last year in receiving yards. Jefferson is an incredible receiver. Who would have even thought this is only year 2 of us watching him? He replaced Stephon Diggs. Diggs was one of the best receivers in the league when he was in Minnesota. He was competing with Thielen for that number 1 spot. Now the question is, what do you deem a number 1 wide receiver? The one that scores more or the one that gets all the yardage?
I would say the one that does more than just catch the touchdowns. I mean, touchdowns obviously pretty important, but yeah, I mean, Justin Jefferson is just so good at every area of the field. Pretty crazy, too, that another guy having a great rookie season, Jamar Chase, used to be teammates like with Justin Jefferson back in the day. Like if you're playing in a dynasty league for fantasy, it might be Chase and Justin Jefferson as the 2 top receivers in dynasty going forward, which is pretty unbelievable considering they have so much shared connected history there. There's a lot of history, Ariel, between you and the Baltimore Ravens. There's also a lot of chaos going on for Baltimore today. We know Lamar was incredibly questionable coming into this game. I saw the clips of him walking, pre-game through the stadium or whatever. I was like, no chance, buddy. He's not playing if he's walking around like that with this illness or whatever. This was obviously Ravens -1.5. The current halftime line is Ravens -3.5. The Bears have scored 0 points. The Ravens have 6. Ariel, how are we feeling about the Tyler Huntley experience?
I said this all prior to the game actually starting. I watched Tyler Huntley play against the Cleveland Browns, that miracle game where Lamar Jackson ran into the bathroom or locker room for whatever reason. And look, here we are, Tyler Huntley game.
You said
yet
bathroom,
again.
and we all, yeah.
Locker room,
yeah,
bathroom, wherever he had to go. Well, clearly we're in the same spot a year later, and it's Tyler Huntley's time to shine. He played against Lamar Jackson when they were in high school. He plays like Lamar Jackson. The two of them run the same. They have a lot of speed, and the accuracy is showing. The Ravens defense stepping up. They came up with a turnover. It's a tough defense to go up against, even though they're not in their best shape as they have been in years past. I'm not betting this game. I don't like to bet the Ravens games ever unless I have my sharp group of friends who tell me this is a good spot for them. Today, people asked me about teasers all week. I said I'm staying away. All I need is the Ravens to win this game in a very gross way, and I don't even care how. Just get into Chicago, get out, pick up the W after that atrocious loss to Miami. The thing is that's so hard is Lamar Jackson has missed practice for an illness for like almost every week this year. That's why I didn't buy it. It's like the boy who cried wolf. The team continues to say that Lamar's missing Wednesday and Thursday of practice to illness. Why would I think this week was any different? Oh, all of a sudden there's some virus going through the team. I mean, yeah. So stay away. The Ravens have lost to the Bears before on a field goal, so just stay away from this spot live.
Yeah, I would agree. The whole Lamar thing, somebody needs to, I don't mean to, like, make jokes about a person's health or whatever, but like, we got to figure out what's going on with Lamar and all these illnesses. Like, I don't know, tough situation there. Any of the other early games catch your eye, like going forward, either the halftime line, one of your prop bets during the game, or shall we move on to the later games?
The only other game that's worth pointing out is the Jets and Dolphins game. This one was so scary for me. I did end up jumping in on the Jets at +3.5 about an hour or two before kickoff. It took me so much. I was sitting there just like hesitant to pull the trigger. It was like 85% of the action on Miami. And even though the line continued to move in the Dolphins' favor, which is why it wasn't reverse line movement, there's always those sides that people are so confident about, the public absolutely loves, and it doesn't look as good as it should have. Same thing that happened with that Ravens-Dolphins game on Thursday Night Football. 85% of the public was backing the Ravens, and the Ravens lose. Even though this was a gross spot, I took the Jets +3.5. We'll see how it all pans out.
I also saw that you had the over on Mike Gesicki longest catch. He did get that for you pretty early, 26-yard catch for Mike Gesicki. 4 for 44 after catching exactly the same amount of passes as I did in the NFL last week, which, by the way, is 0. So, yeah, good stuff there. We love to see it. Joe Flacco running the offense pretty well for the New York Jets there, 12 of 21. 126 yards and a touchdown. That defense has actually played better there for New York. They got one pick off of Tua early. That defense had been a nightmare. 32nd in EPA per dropback and EPA per rush attempt allowed since week 7.
Elijah Moore, because I had the over 33.5 on Elijah Moore receiving yards. He's at 32 right now.
32. I love Elijah Moore. That guy is so good. I think he is like a Tyler Lockett clone. We'll get there, Ariel. We'll get there. 6 targets in the first half there for Elijah Moore. So we will get there on that one. All right, let's jump ahead to the later games now. First up, let's talk Bengals at Raiders. Bengals -1.5. This is obviously very close. I feel like this is kind of a loser goes home game here between these two teams. Like, one of them will still be in a pretty good position to compete for whether they get it or not, they'll still be in a pretty good position to compete for an AFC wildcard spot. But the other might be sort of staring at the future. Which one of these two teams are you on here?
Whew, this one's tough. I stayed away from this spot. If I had to, I would have teased Vegas up when they got to +1.5. You get a 6-point teaser and you get them through the touchdown at +7.5. However, I like 2 props in this game. My favorite prop in the game is the Raiders running back Josh Jacobs over 17.5 receiving yards. He's gone over this number in 5 straight weeks, and the Bengals have allowed the 4th most receiving yards to running backs this year, including 5 straight games, 8 out of 9 total this year, where a running back's gone over it. The other one I like is for the Bengals side, CJ Uzomah over 14.5 for his longest reception. Only 3 games this year where a tight end didn't go over this number against Las Vegas. That was Cole Kmet, Mark Andrews, and Pat Freiermuth. I can't say it. Freiermuth. So, yes, that one was a tough one, but the Pittsburgh Steelers tight end. So there's only 3 different receivers or tight ends that didn't go over this number, and that is why I like Uzomah over 14.5 yards for his longest reception.
CJ Uzomah definitely been making some big downfield plays this year. I like that pick by you. All right, let's move on to one of the biggest games of this week. Cowboys at Chiefs. Chiefs minus 2.5. I don't know about that. I know it's in Arrowhead. Arrowhead's a tough place to play. Dak Prescott's been one of the best pre-snap quarterbacks this year. Extremely cerebral at the line, getting them into the right spot. They've done so much throwing different looks, different formations. We expected this team, obviously Michael Gallup had been on IR for a long stretch. We expected this team to be a 3 wide receiver offense. They're around 51% of their plays last week were in 3 wide receiver sets. They're still mostly a 2 tight end offense. They love to throw these heavy formations at you. I feel like that's a pretty good matchup for Dallas going against a team in Kansas City that's been particularly bad at the linebacker level, the safety level. This looks like a really good week for CeeDee Lamb, who is, we'll see what happens with Amari Cooper not available in this game. But when they've gone to 3 wide receiver sets, at least last week, they kicked CeeDee Lamb into the slot for over 60% of his snaps. You love to see that.
Yeah, I actually really do like CeeDee Lamb in the game. I do not like the Cowboys. I actually bet Kansas City at minus 2.5, which it's scary. I'm just not buying the Cowboys yet. I'm not sold on the Cowboys defense. I am still sold on the Chiefs offense. When it comes to CeeDee Lamb, though, I do like his longest reception, over 26.5 yards. He leads the Cowboys with 13 plays for over 20 yards. No Amari Cooper, making him the deep threat. And CeeDee Lamb's always the deep threat, and he's had more. Amari Cooper has 10 catches for over 20 yards. Lamb has 13. However, there's no competing now. Lamb is the guy. Yeah. And also, at least one player has gone over this number against Kansas City in every game this year. I love the over 26.5 yards, longest reception on CeeDee Lamb.
Love it. All right. Cardinals at Seahawks. Seahawks minus 3. Ugh. I mean, this game could be pretty gross. Russell Wilson did not look like himself last week. I think we're in a tough spot with our Seattle Seahawks lately. Just this Russ, come on, get some sleep. Give me a break. Stop rehabbing for 19 hours a day or something. That cannot possibly be a real thing. Get some sleep. Get some rest. Actually play some good football on Sunday. But I don't feel like Kyler Murray's going to play in this game. We know DeAndre Hopkins is not going to play in this game. This could still be a spot where Seattle looks pretty good, despite the fact that, despite the fact that I don't really trust the Seahawks right now at all.
I trusted them enough to bet them at plus 2.5 early this week. I knew this line was going to move. If Kyler Murray wasn't playing, this line was flipping or at least going to a pick-em. The Cardinals are going into a bye next week. If Murray's not at 100%, why play him? You give your quarterback 2 weeks off in a row. His number 1 receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, already isn't playing. And as long as you knew that Murray was out, you knew you were getting the better line. Call it the closing line value, where if you get Seattle at plus 2.5, well, great, you won the first leg. Can you actually cash home the prize? That's what I'm hoping for in this Seattle game. I'm not going to overreact to what we saw out of Wilson last week. He has a broken finger. He was in Lambeau. It was snowing. Green Bay is a tough defense to go up against. Now he's home. He saw game action. You get those jitters out. You know how your finger is going to feel when you're throwing the football. I had no issue with taking Seattle as a home dog.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And especially, too, when you look at I know you've got a prop on Russell Wilson, the over on his rushing yards here. This is a chaos-inducing defense there for Arizona. They've got, even without J.J. Watt, they've still got a pretty decent pass rush there. But I feel like that's going to force Russell Wilson to scramble a little bit more than he was last week in Green Bay.
That's why it's so interesting. Yes, they can limit the run game. There's not much of a run game to limit with Seattle now that Chris Carson's out for the year with neck surgery. Now, Russell Wilson, on the other hand, is a mobile quarterback, and Arizona has allowed the 6th most rushing yards to quarterbacks this season. Last year, Arizona allowed the most rushing yards to quarterbacks Russell Wilson went off. He went over this number in both the games that he played against the Cardinals. He's gone over this number in 2 out of his last 3 games against defenses that have allowed a top 10 amount of rushing yards to quarterbacks. So I like the over on 19.5 rushing yards for Wilson.
Love it. Good call on that one. All right, let's kind of go rapid fire quickly through these 2 primetime games we got, and we'll obviously be getting into my props. Ariel, I know you are the prop queen here, so I'm not going to try to like step on your royalty or step on your turf, but I am 35-25 through 10 weeks. Had some tougher spots the last couple of weeks. Not ideal with some of these lower scoring games. The viewers know, the good folks out there know that I philosophically will not bet an under here. It's just not going to do it, which is stupid, right? Because, you know, you're winning your bet like the second the game starts. The guy is under, right? But I just can't do it. I don't manifest that negative energy. You know, that's what I'm obviously all about here. But we're going to talk about this game right here. Chargers welcoming the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Chargers are 6-point favorites. I don't know that I totally trust this LA team right now. Pittsburgh is boring. We were talking about this before the game, but like the media hates Pittsburgh, like because they're boring and you know we're all done with Ben Roethlisberger, and I get it, but this is still a pretty good team. That being said, Pittsburgh extremely depleted there on defense. No TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick also out. They've got a lot of injuries, Joe Hayden as well. I kind of like this to be the rebound spot for Justin Herbert and the passing game. So a couple of props I like there for the LA Chargers. One, I'll take the over at -160 on Justin Herbert passing touchdowns at 1.5. I think he can get 2 in this game. Keenan Allen over 72.5 receiving yards. Give me a break, people. I think he definitely clears that number. He's seen double-digit targets the last few games. I love Keenan Allen every single week. And we've seen it in previous outings. I don't know if it's going to be the same here, but like Keenan Allen has dusted this team because they only use that zone coverage, and Keenan Allen just eats them over the middle of the field. So I like the over on both of those 2 Chargers props.
I like it because I do like the Chargers also. I've seen this line move from -4.5 to -6. The public's been betting Pittsburgh all week. I've seen that close to 60% of the actions come in on the Steelers. The line has moved 1.5 points in favor of the Chargers. You mentioned all the injuries to the Steelers defense. That's why I love that you're attacking the Chargers offensively. There is one player that is coming back for Pittsburgh who I always like to keep a close eye on in longest reception props. That's their wide receiver, Chase Claypool. He's one of those players that he could go deep on any given day. Him or Deontay Johnson have been awesome for going deep for Ben Roethlisberger. I would attack the secondary for the Chargers. However, I do like the Chargers to win the game. Austin Eckler, the running back, has been phenomenal this year in whatever role that you put him in. I'll see how they like to game plan against this Pittsburgh defense, especially all banged up.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that for sure. You know, Deontay Johnson's one of my favorite receivers out there. I just think he's so good in terms of earning targets. He's so good at separating. Makes some mistakes every now and again, but I like that call. That Chargers pass defense has started to fall by the wayside as well, but we know the core weakness of this Chargers team is their run defense. They've been terrible all season. So I took the over on Najee Harris's total rushing plus receiving yards at 115.5. Like, I know it's a bigger number, but the thing with Najee is I'd love to take just the rushing yards because the Chargers are so bad as a run defense, but Harris gets a lot of volume through the air. He gets those checkdowns from Ben Roethlisberger, and, you know, I never totally trust the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line to blow open some good holes there, so I like getting the total yards there as kind of a potential safety net.
I like it. And if you think that you're going to get some more catches out of the backfield, that means that Ben Roethlisberger's throwing the ball more. The Big Ben pass attempts prop was huge for me last year. It was one of those reliable props like the Justin Jefferson longest reception props. You just kept going to it because there was absolutely no run game in Pittsburgh. Well, now you at least have Najee Harris who can come out of the backfield too and add to those catches. I've always loved Big Ben's pass attempts, especially because if I think that he's going to be trailing in this game, he'll probably be throwing.
Yeah, absolutely. That seems to be the way of the Steelers offense. All right, let's move on to Monday Night Football. We've got the Bucks and the Giants here. Yeah. Love it when the Giants are on a primetime game. Just absolutely love that. Tampa Bay -10.5. That's a pretty big line for a team that's lost 2 in a row with their bye sandwich in between. But just a much better team. I expect the Bucs to get right here. I don't know about the 10.5, but I do expect them to win this game and control it. A couple of props that I like here. Leonard Fournette over 14.5 carries at -120. I know that Fournette has 11 and 8 carries in back-to-back games, but we've seen him clear that number a couple times before. And I just think he is the engine of this offense, like right now from a stability standpoint. 8 catches on 9 targets last week as well. They've clearly moved on from the Ronald Jones thing, thank God. Gio Bernard's not really playing that big of a role either. Fournette has been the foundation back here, so if I can get the over on his carries, I like that in a game that I do expect Tampa Bay to control.
I do like that play, especially because of the control factor. If Tampa Bay is going to take a lead the way that this line is indicating, then you're going to expect some running. Even though Tom Brady loves to throw the ball, he'll probably do that early on. I would target someone like a Chris Godwin, who has been better of late. But I do like the play on Leonard Fournette for the over carries because, one thing, Tom Brady loves to be a time and a clock manager, a game manager, whatever you want to call him. He's going to do that by establishing the run.
Yeah, game manager, that's gonna freak out some people to hear that one. But I love that you brought up Chris Godwin. I am taking the over on 6.5 catches for Chris Godwin here. I mean, we know that when Antonio Brown sits, he's gonna miss this game. I'm still 50. I know Gronk is expected to play, but listen, Ariel, ain't nobody used to have a bad back. Once you got a bad back, you got a bad back. If, Gronk tweaks that thing a little bit early on in the game, he could get removed from the action. And Chris Godwin has just been the steady guy for the Bucs this year. He's their slot receiver. Plus odds on this one, too. Plus 110 when I saw it. The Bucs secondary will be encouraging some back and forth action there. I think the Bucs are going to have to play aggressively offensively, and Chris Godwin is just that number one threat for this team right now. He's such a good player. I will take the over on 6.5 catches here.
Yeah, I like that. And I like that you mentioned the Bucs secondary because it is one thing I've been attacking. People don't think so much about taking the offense against Tampa Bay because they think that Tom Brady is going to be in control of the game and he's going to dominate. That's just how people perceive Tom Brady games. The Bucs secondary has been struggling this year. Longest reception props have been profitable when betting against that Bucs secondary. Look to the deep threats in New York. And the Giants, I haven't really gotten into the Giants receivers yet because you just never know with them. Who's playing, who's not playing, is Galladay hurt? I mean, there's so many injuries going on in New York. I'm going to probably wait this one out until probably tomorrow to see what the injury report says on any of these Giants players, then decide for myself which of these Giants deep threats am I going to go attack Tampa Bay secondary with.
I think the guy that I like is Kenny Galladay. I took the over on 51.5 catches. He led the wide receivers in routes run the last time we saw them before their bye. He should theoretically be the healthiest he's been all season. Coming off the bye week, no Sterling Shepard. That's probably going to push Kadarius Toney into the slot. We'll see if they play Kadarius Toney in 2 wide receiver sets. His playing time has been a little hit or miss this year because no one wants to hear it, but he's still not a completely refined player. Very explosive, got a lot of juice after the catch, but I think Kenny Galladay can get over on some of these outside cornerbacks for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I would take the risk on Kenny Galladay. Ariel, this went by quickly, but that's it for us. This has been awesome to have you here, and I can tell you before we go, good news here. Elijah Moore, 20-yard catch from Joe Flacco, so we got over on that one as well.
Woohoo! Good way to end the show.
Thank you, Ariel, for hanging out with me. Thank you all out there for watching. Good luck the rest of Week 11.